there was no way to label that the computer wasn't, the radar wasn't smart enough to label the
Yeah.
targets. So, and then there was a story that an air traffic controller told at one time somebody came in with a tea trolley to provide refreshments, and they tripped over the wire, and the whole display collapsed down the center, and everything disappeared. they plugged it back in, and they had to tell everybody, they had to figure out which blip was which airplane.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to live in Nashua, and it was quite, some of the neighbors worked at the air traffic control center there.
Yeah. I've been up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Northeast Artsy. It's a air.
Are they
control for
still, do
traffic
they
control.
still work out of that place?
I would bet they do. Yeah, because
Really?
there's about I want to say there's about 10 of them in the United States, something like that. I've
Yeah.
been in that one, and there's one up in Anchorage, Alaska, and there's one in Kansas City, just south of Kansas City, in Olathe, Kansas.
Mhm.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I think those are the only ones I've been in. They're pretty interesting. And then then each air turbo, like Logan, has its own air traffic control part that just handles arrivals and departures from
Yeah.
Logan.
From Logan, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
don't all the big airports have their own?
that's right. The really tough one is New York, because there's LaGuardia and there's
Teterboro.
Newark, LaGuardia, and what used to be, I guess JFK, what used to be Idlewild long ago.
Oh, right, yeah.
And those are all handled by separate groups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then they have like small ones too in that same, because I know
Yes,
a friend used to fly in and out of Teterboro.
that's right. And those,
And then I've flown in and out of, like, out on Long Island, but it's not that you go through the same airspace.
I know what you're talking about. Islip, probably, right?
Yeah, that's it. I
Yep.
couldn't remember. Yep.
Yeah. That's where,
That
and in
was,
fact, that's where this group was right next to Islip Airport. Yeah.
yeah, that's my first flight with my brand new son at that time. He was,
Oh,
yeah, he was, well, it's like over 50 years ago now, but yeah,
yeah.
he was in, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I had flown before. I think I'd flown once or twice before, but mainly I hadn't flown much. I mean,
Yeah.
50 years ago, one didn't fly a whole lot. And
Right.
and I remember, flying with him. He was like, like, I don't know, like less than 20 pounds, like a little football. And
Wow.
yeah, well, we were going to visit grandparents, and
Yep.
then the dad was coming. His dad was coming, taking the car late, like later. So that way we could spend more time with
Yeah.
grandparents. You know,
Oh, nice.
that's the only time we went into Iceland. Usually we take the ferry.
Yeah.
Go by car and take the ferry out to Long Island, but that was my big trip to Iceland.
Yeah. When we
I
were
remember
working with
him.
Islip, we took the ferry from the London to North Fork, I think it was. Yeah. Or Northport.
London,
Northport.
yeah, and it goes to the end, and then
Yes, that's
the
right.
other one goes. One of them goes to Port Jefferson.
Yeah.
We quite often we took the Port Jefferson one. If we were taking the sometimes we'd take the Port Jefferson, but then the one that went out further to, like, it's called towards the Hamptons, and it's out at the end there.
Yeah.
That ferry got better
Yeah.
over the years. The other one, both of them were pretty horrible over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I remember taking the ferry. I remember one night we were at a funeral in Newport.
Huh.
Then we had to take the ferry from Newport to Jamestown. Then the bridge from Jamestown to, what is it, North Kingston, I think it is, Kingston.
Huh.
And then catch up with 95 across. And I don't think we took a ferry no, I'm sure we didn't take a ferry that night. It was so late. We get around. But people forget that, there were ferries more locally.
Yeah, yeah,
That was Rhode Island. I lived in Rhode Island at the time.
yeah. Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Pam and I used to go to Rhode Island a lot. Right after we got married, around the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh yeah. Where'd you go?
Mostly to her mother rented a house in Little Compton, Rhode Island.
Yeah, yeah. That's
She would rent it
beautiful.
for a month, and then she
Yeah.
had such a good time for a month that she had the summer off, so she rented it for the whole summer. And Pam had two younger daughters or younger sisters that were
Yeah.
so the mom, they lived in New York City, so getting out
Oh,
to Rhode Island for all of
yeah.
summer vacation was pretty nice for
Oh,
those girls.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used a couple of times my parents rented a place at the end of the island where Newport is. And that
Oh yeah.
the opposite end is called Common Fence Point. And
Okay.
that's at the very end of Common Fence Point. We were like the house that was next to us, they owned two cottages next to them, right out the last piece there. And it goes around there, and then you end up in the river. They
Yeah.
call it the river, but it's
It's
not
like
really.
it's the Secana River, isn't it, or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
the Secundit River, yeah.
Yeah,
And
where we used to go is right Little Compton's just opposite that on the other
yeah,
side.
right. It's right across the
Well, that's a
bay.
nice place. Boy, that's pretty neat.
Well, that was kind of like it was the opposite end of Newport. It
Oh, sure. Yeah.
was very small cottagey kind of thing.
Yeah. And
And I
that's
mean, my parents were couldn't afford a whole lot, but they the people that owned it, like that we came for the whole summer, or
yeah.
I think it was the whole summer, several of the times. So we were a big family, and
Yeah.
we didn't bother anybody. We didn't have wild parties or, you know, any,
Yeah.
any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that mostly it was my mom with the younger kids, and like sometimes I'd stay home to do, depending when my dad was coming back and forth, I'd stay home in East Providence to take care of
Sure.
the garden
Yeah.
because we had a huge garden. Do you ever remember? I don't know if you ever did garden chloridane.
You mean the pesticide?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We had a serious case of it in our first house. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we bought a house in Stowe in 1970 in the
Uh-huh.
fall,
Uh-huh.
and we moved in January of 71.
Yeah.
And we had just had a baby. Our first baby was born right then.
Yeah.
And I think at some point, Pamela had her breast milk analyzed for pesticides, and it turned out there was a lot of chloridane in it. And
Ooh.
we didn't know, we were kind of green at it, but it turns out that somebody who had owned the house before us had put chloridane around the outside of the house for
Yeah.
termites.
Yeah, that was a common. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I found one place where they put it because I turned over some soil next to the foundation and it really stank of something, and
It had a kind of a dull, um, kind of a dull smell to it. I can remember it. We used
yeah,
to touch it. We used to handle it with our hands,
yeah, yeah. Gee.
and we used to use it on our garden crops
Yeah.
because nobody said at that time what the danger was.
I know it's so, yeah,
I mean,
so,
I had my hands, as a kid up to, my shoulders in this bag of stuff, putting it on, edibles.
yeah.
And
Well, I remember as a kid in Minnesota, we had a lawnmower that had a little fitting on it that you could pour insecticide in. It would make a fog.
oh my
And
gosh.
so I used to drive that around the yard making fog in the shrubbery. And who knows what was in that fog. I hate
Yeah.
to
Well, that's, Well,
Yeah.
I've been wondered if sometimes that's affected my life is the original stuff with the chloridane. I mean, at that time, you know, it was better than DDT, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, the kids, I mean, one of the kids, we'd fight over who could use the Flit sprayer,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
you
Exactly.
know, yeah, because we, you know, we'd be at our, my mom's cousin's house at the beach, and
Yeah.
at a certain time, like, it was like, can I use the sprayer? It's my turn to use the sprayer, you know, to spray the porch so that we wouldn't get eaten alive. And
Did you say flit?
yeah,
Yeah, there was my aunt's my grandfather had a little house north of little house. He had a little farm north of Minneapolis on a lake that he
uh-huh.
bought way back in the 1920s. And we
Wow.
used to go up there on the weekends. Well, we used to go up there almost any old time because it wasn't that far away. And one of the funny things they'd say is apparently there was a slogan that said, "Quick, Henry the Flit." There was, and they had a little, like you said, there's a little pump thing with a little bottle
Yeah,
on the end,
yeah.
and
And you had to fill, like one of the parents had to fill the bottle because they didn't want to spill it from the jug or wherever. I think it was a big jug of stuff. A lot
was
of
that
things.
chloridine? Was Flit
No,
chloridine?
that's the Flit. No, that was DDT.
It was DDT.
Yeah.
Oh my
And the
God,
Flit sprayer was DDT.
that's crazy.
Chloridane, in my knowledge of it, is a powder. The
Yeah,
DDT was like an oil based
yeah.
spray, as far as I
Yes, you're
can
right.
remember. I mean, I'm just remembering off the top of my head as a kid.
The funny thing was when Pam and I bought that house in Stowe, we got it because it had uh we had been living in an apartment in Cambridge, and
Yeah.
part of the reason we got it was we wanted to get out of Cambridge,
Right.
but we also wanted to farm or raise
Ah,
crops and raise a lot of our own food. And so
yeah.
we bought a place that had, it was like a
Yeah.
half acre of open field that was
Yeah.
quite nice sun on it and stuff. And we of course were gardening without pesticides and without chemicals as much as we could.
Yeah.
And
That's what
uh,
we used to do that too when our kids were young. And so you have a child born in 1970?
71. She was born September 71.
Okay,
Sorry.
because
Yeah.
my son is October 1970. Because you said
Okay.
you moved in like early 70s. I said, yeah, we must have kids about the same age. Then my
Yeah.
daughter was born in 74.
Yeah.
Got the two kids.
Yeah, we had two girls and a boy. So Molly was 19, I think 71, and then Rebecca was 75.
Mhm.
And then my son who lives in Arlington was 77.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
That's pretty
your oldest kids and mine are right within less than a year or months of each other. Yeah.
that amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Small world. And we were looking
Thanks
for a
for that
lot of the
tip.
same things too. It's interesting, like
Yeah.
we could grow some of our own things. And at some points, and we lived in the southern New Hampshire area, and
Yeah.
some points we rented land from farmer.
Yeah. Let me
Some
try
we
let
grew.
me try getting hold of Stan and see if I can help him get back in the meeting. Let's see.
Yeah. And what about, is Steve coming? How
I
many do
don't
we
know.
need?
Pardon?
How many do we need?
Well, we need 4 to make a quorum, but I talked to my wife who knows a little bit about this, and she says as long as we can't vote to approve the minutes unless we're a quorum.
Right.
And oh, look at that cute little thing. Did that
Yeah,
pop up?
yeah, it popped up.
Try that again. Ah. Oh, you're used to it? Try it.
Mine doesn't do that.
Wait, hold it steady. Hold it up there. Try it again.
I've never done it
Oh, be darned. Why is it doing that?
because it somehow knows you.
Let me see if it does with my left thumb.
Yep.
Go figure. Oh, hold it steady in one position for a little while. See if that works. Yeah, hold it clear in the background. Maybe a little bit more. There you go. Come on, what's the matter with
Well,
this thing?
because it's an iPad, it just probably doesn't.
Oh, maybe
Apple
that's what,
doesn't quite
a
often
different
doesn't
piece
do
of
the same
software.
things. Other
Well, that's crazy. Well, let's see now. Back on my.
That
I,
was funny.
that was very funny. Let me see. Whoops, that's wrong. Let me try this again.
Okay,
Let's see.
yeah, we can't
This might be
deliberate.
Stan. Let's see. Yep, I think this might be his number. Oh boy. No, that didn't work. Let me try another one. Let's see. Dial. I got to check his number. Just a sec.
That's something we ought to do is swap out numbers, because if somebody doesn't show that they can
Oh, that's a really good idea. Let's see.
numbers and addresses and kind of the basics.
Yes. Let's see.
I usually put my phone number at the end of emails.
Yeah, me too. Here we go.
Check my
Oh, sometimes my phone doesn't go through. Let me try that again. Let's see. I have
Oh, tonight was the water meeting too.
yes, yeah, that's where
Yeah,
that's where everybody else went. Let's see.
that's kind of important, but
Yeah,
maybe we should have.
but we can scrub if
Is
you want.
that zoomed? I wonder if that's zoomed.
I don't know.
If it is, I go look it up.
The nice
It
thing
is.
if it's a Zoom meeting, they record them. Oh,
Yeah,
his line is busy. Yeah, like I've listened to recordings of this meeting when I needed to make minutes and I couldn't remember what was said. It's easy to go back and watch the
yeah,
whole thing.
yeah. Okay, the winter sow, that's Isabel's doing that.
Yeah.
And I said I'd show up.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, Laura and Priscilla.
Yeah.
And Priscilla said, and kids, they're green, a green
Yep.
team.
That green team. That's
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah, well, like the kids that were on the green team before graduate, like Sydney Haddad, who was one of the main movers and shakers on that group, is now in college.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Well,
I know she always looks so young. I know her from church. That's how I know Sydney.
oh fun.
And
Yeah.
years ago, the kids wanted chocolate milk. Well, we used when we had a retreat in it's Ferry Beach, and we
Yeah.
for a number of years we always had chocolate milk. And then one of the people doing the food was like nutrition conscious. We weren't going to have chocolate milk, which I guess we didn't. I think we didn't one year,
Yeah.
one of those years. So the kids got together, headed by Sydney, who must have been in fourth or fifth grade at the time,
Yeah.
Mark, organized with her, notepad and everything, signatures to get chocolate milk returned.
A
It's like,
petition, huh?
yeah, but it's like it cracked you up because when you teach the kids things, some people aren't thinking, well, it comes around.
Right.
It was
Oh, here
so
comes
fun.
Dan. Yeah.
They were adorable. They got their
Yeah.
chocolate milk back, but now they don't do the chocolate milk, which I always thought was fun. I mean, for one weekend a year, chocolate milk,
Yeah. Give me a break, right?
it's like a party.
Yeah.
When you're on vacation, it's like party time, have chocolate milk.
It is a treat though, isn't it? I mean, I remember
Yeah,
it was a treat.
yeah. Even as an adult, every so once in a while, I had chocolate milk. I like coffee milk, but back. I mean, look, she was like fourth or fifth grade, and she already had that spirit of, let's get things done.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
stand.
I you need to unmute yourself. Down in the lower left corner.
Now, see, mine's in the upper right.
You hear it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yay.
Hey,
I
that's
don't
three
know
of them.
how I've managed to get this thing screwed up so much tonight, but I have.
It's okay.
It's one of those things. There's gremlins.
Yeah.
By the way, I did try to get our friend,
Yes.
and I couldn't get him, but I left a message with his family. I think it was. I talked to eventually, but
Yeah.
I guess he's not available.
Yeah.
Is
It
that
looks
Steve?
like it.
They
That's
didn't
okay.
didn't get back.
Well, I checked with my wife Pamela's been on a bunch of committees, and I said, what do we do if we're not a quorum? And in the old days, remember when we started out, we weren't a quorum. Of course, we were standing outside and it was the winter time. We said, well, let's all go home,
Yeah.
But,
Sounds like an idea.
but apparently, if we're not a quorum, the only things we can't do is vote to approve the minutes because we're not a quorum. And we can't have any votes, we can't
Yeah.
have any conclusions or stuff. But I don't know what deliberation means. I don't think we deliberate much. We more share information.
Could we each tell a story?
Sure.
That's what we've been doing so far.
Yeah, but that's what we were doing because
We've been tracing the historical genealogy of DDT and chloridane.
Ah,
And it turns out Lois and well, you probably do too, but all of our kids are about the same age because of course we're all about the same age.
yeah.
But Lois put me onto something. Well, you tell it, Lois, about
the seeds.
save the
seeds?
bees, yeah, and the seeds.
Yeah, well, the town uses, and Isabel is part of this, and I don't want to go like behind her back. So,
Yeah.
and I've had, I gave some pushback to her once I read about it. Is that Bayer has a program, Save the Bees or Conserve Bees. They have a couple different names for them, and this company called Ernst, ERNST.
Yeah.
Ernst, it's like Ernst Seeds, but they've got another name too. That the second word, conservation or conserve, I can't remember, but anyway, they're a
Yeah.
seed company in Meadville, Pennsylvania. And Delia has Isabel. If Isabel wants to use seeds on town property, she has to purchase them from this company, which seems, like a nice kind of traditional family farm business. And the seeds are supposed to come from Middlesex County in Massachusetts. Now, that part I don't quite understand because it's like, where they harvest, I'd be curious where in Middlesex they're harvesting seeds. I mean, they got to be in our neighborhood, I mean,
Yeah.
Middlesex County's strung out a little, but it's not gonna be, it's gonna be within an hour travel to where we are. So when I'm looking at the site with this Ernst Seeds, this program Save the Bees and whatever, and come to find out who it's funded by is Bayer, Bayer.
Yeah.
And I have to say, so I said something to Isabel. I said, this is kind of, so she talked to the sales rep she deals with, and the sales rep, came back with, they don't accept money from them. They don't, whatever. But it was a typical boilerplate sales kind of thing. I mean, salespeople have certain things that they know the speech, so to speak. And a lot of salespeople are not technical at all. Some are incredibly technical, but a lot are not. I used to do some sales and I was not particularly technical, but I could understand my products, and I just sold mostly equipment and components for electronics, but and keyboards and keypads. And but it kind of raised some red flags with me. And I don't know if I'm just being like, like the name Bayer, I mean, you think of baby aspirin, but they are a chemical company, and they own Monsanto now. They bought out Monsanto a few years back. So they have, and plus they have their own chemicals that for the agriculture business. So come to find out, apparently there are some pretty strong chemicals that are used in this Ernst place. Now, I don't know if it's just used on their farm, if it's used, how it's used or whatever, but that seemed to be what I could find, which was like, like, it made me think, like, and I might have it wrong, because sometimes I'm not a chemist. I'm, I'm a, what do you call it? A consumer. I'm pretty educated consumer, but sometimes I get it wrong because what, I want to connect the dots, but they don't really connect. Like for years, I used to think I lived in East Providence, Rhode Island. I thought Roger Williams came from Plymouth, which he did. And I figured he just went directly to East Providence because it's almost due west. No, Roger Williams went to Salem and then to Providence and Blackstone Valley, whatever. But quite often I make that mistake, is, draw a conclusion that isn't correct. So I want to own that. But it's enough to question, like, what is really happening? Who are these people? And why are we going to Meadville, Pennsylvania, to a company in Meadville, Pennsylvania? And like I said, maybe their connections here in Middlesex County or whatever, they do not advertise as organic seeds. That was my first clue. It's like, they don't say organic seeds. They also don't really advertise that they're all like native or natural. And I know the word natural doesn't have a chemical. It's kind of a marketing term that doesn't have any specifics. So I just have some questions, and it might just be my loopy brain is not putting all the dots together in the right way, but it sounds like a company that's in bed with, one of the forever chemical companies, a company that makes, a lot of forever chemicals. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know the absolute answer, but it did definitely bring up some questions. And the question I have is basically our town specifying they want seeds, and it happens to be from a company that uses neonics. So it'd be good to have some of you other guys look and see what you can figure out from it, and how that Bears Save the Bees works. I mean, it's like ExxonMobil they do some nice things. The cigarette companies tobacco companies do some nice things. And some of it you have to live with your neighbors, that I don't think there's absolute answers on some of it, but it definitely had big question marks for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, Isabel went back and asked the sales rep, and the sales rep had a cursory answer for, the questions that we posed to her. And that they accepted no money, they'd been, whatever. But you don't have to accept money to be in bed with somebody. You can accept their products, expertise,
Well,
You know, I don't know what the whole deal is, but it's just very odd to me. Because I was looking for a source of some seeds too, because I have a membership at place in Framingham, and then Wild Seed in Maine. Wild Seed in Maine does collect their own seeds locally. You know, and they trust that the people supplying them are okay. I lived in Harvard, Mass for a number of years, and you know, there's a lot of orchards there. And years and years ago, there was this place, it was on the Littleton Harvard line. It was actually in Littleton, that collected a lot of apples from Harvard. And they big thing that their apple juice was organic and all. And anyone I knew who had an orchard said they never ask. You just bring your apples over and dump them in the pile. They never ask anything. Because I mean, I had neighbors who had smaller orchards on their property, not the big growers, but he said they never asked a thing, they never checked anything, nothing. And I also worked at Gaia Herbs years ago in the 90s, and during that time, the rules for organic products in the marketplace changed, and they changed to be much more lenient than they had been. And that was pushed by the bigger companies, so that things didn't have to be as organic as they did prior to the push from the big companies, which, like, it surprised me. I guess that was like a surprise. Like, I just figured, I figured it was more black and white than that, than, you know, having that influence that some things are called organic that probably any one of us would be like, oh, they use that, you know. And so some of it has to do with the times, the timing, the point in where the plant is, the timing, and what they suggest is when the bees are not around. So anyway, that's questions for me that I have that are bugging me. Let's put it that way. They just have me unsettled about it. I'd just like to understand it better. And if either one of you can have any understanding, a look, and then if the town is truly dealing with a company that's using neonics, that doesn't sound right.
hmm.
I mean,
know
isn't that one of the charges, sort of one of the charges on our charge is to look at that?
Well, it's certainly worth knowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing that might help a little bit might be the proportion. Like if you were raising seeds on a plant, say, and you wanted to use neonics to keep the plant alive,
Right.
and the seeds would contain the neonics that were on the plant, that they would they have a small enough amount of the pesticide in them that when the plant grew up from that little tiny seed, that it would be safe.
Well,
I know with the corn, for example, they coat the seeds
right.
after they've got them. Whereas with these guys, they might say something like, well, like I buy strawberry plants from a place in the middle of the state.
Right.
Luckily, I don't buy them every year. And part of the reason I don't buy them every year is because their plants are treated with neonics. And so I put the plants in like 4 feet apart. And then all those plants have daughter plants.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that we pick from the following year. And sure, some of the neonics from the main plant crept into the clones. And then, and I'm sure that well, you never pick. So anyway, are those first plants toxic? Yes, I would say, but of course it depends on the culture. Like we clip off all the blossoms of the first year plants because we don't want the strawberries. We want it to grow plants, not strawberries.
Yeah.
And the second year, but the second year we do let them bloom. And I've never measured the neonic level in the second year plants. And by the third or fourth year, and now these ones I've got are maybe 8 or 9 years old at this point. I'm sure they've all gone away, but the neonics last like 3 years anyway, right?
Well,
And
as far as I know, they were they're for, from what everything when I read about them, they're forever chemicals. They stay forever.
yeah, and the other thing that probably doesn't make sense for them to be using neonics at I mean, beside their,
But
a lot of those plants are
like,
pretty
is
hardy
there
on their
no
own. They don't need the
alternative?
protection.
Like, is
But-
there no alternative?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. See, that's like I don't know the whole story. I just like dropped in on a piece of the story.
Yeah.
Like, how do you test, Mark? How do you test neonics?
The Cornell can do a test.
Okay.
They recently, I got word from them about a year ago, which is recent these days for me. They said that the price of the test was down under $100. It used to be about $400 to get a test.
I have my second granddaughter is at Cornell in agriculture, cows.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check with Amelia. My first granddaughter, this is a very sad situation, went to school there and at some point left and has never been home since. Yeah, very
Ouch.
sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, her parents hired a private investigator, and when he apparently got close to wherever she is, whatever, she moved out of state.
Yeah.
That's all the last they knew. She moved out of state. Yeah, young woman,
Yep.
and so her sister is at the mother works. My daughter-in-law works for Cornell in Albany, in the agriculture, and that's I mean. The kids I'm sure got a good deal at Cornell, which is of course I mean, they wanted to go there. And that's a wonderful place to go. So, whatever.
One of the fellows I knew in town, a fellow I knew in town, of course now I've mentioned it, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's a beekeeper, and he was on the board of Concord Land Conservation Trust.
Mhm.
I think he's an emeritus member now.
Uh-huh.
And I asked him, I said, could we take a sample of the soil on, where Beryl is farming, on CLCT land? He said, sure, help yourself. Yeah.
Oh.
And we could take it and have it tested. If the literature I've read is right, if it's planted to corn year after year with neonic coated seed, I would expect the level to be about 40 to 50 parts per billion.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Did I ever show you the paper? There was a paper from actually the Bayer put out. They did a test in England in a couple of places in England on alluvial soils. Where they planted corn year after year to test persistence. And the first year, and they would measure persistence by planting, they'd plant in like May or April or May, something like that. They go back the next year just before they were going to plant and measure the level in the soil. So they planted on year 0, and at year 1, just before they planted the next crop, they measured 10 parts per billion. And then year 2, it was like 20 parts per billion. And every year it kind of went up another 10.
But they're adding seeds each year that are treated.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because what is it? Sarah Grimwood pointed out that something like 95, she found a source that said 95% of the neonics in the seed end up in the soil, not in the plant.
Right.
And so the buildup it leveled off at about 40 or 50 parts per billion.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Thank you.
It's a very good question, because the plus side is, I guess the plus side is that after a decade, it's probably all gone. The downside is
Well, see,
Man,
that's the
have a
part
decade.
that's the part that seems to be questionable, Mark, that,
Yeah,
that, like most things have like a half-life or, some kind of a deterioration point.
right.
But apparently, I don't know what I need to look at that, this forever chemicals, what they define as forever chemical, what the thing is for
I
that.
switch. Yeah,
I mean, and sometimes there's like a consumer catchword. And the forever might be a catchword that it really isn't forever. It's deteriorates, but
yeah,
apparently it's detectable for a very long time, a lot more than a decade, from what my understanding, from what Europeans and other places have seemed to come up with.
that's right.
Uh,
And what happens is that this chemical, the neonicotinoid, the artificial nicotine, right? Um, when it stops being the artificial nicotine, it's still what it did. The chemical broke apart. It's a fairly complicated chemical, and
right.
so it oxidized or something happened to it. But what you're left with is two other chemicals, and they're not necessarily a free ride. I mean,
Yeah,
some of the literature I've read, I haven't read it fully, but I have read some literature that said that the stuff is not good either.
right.
And then I don't know what its life is either. Yeah,
That's my consumer understanding.
yeah. And yeah, you're right. With the half-life, I guess it never fully goes away. It's always just after another half-life interval, now you've got half of what you had before. So I guess after two half-lives, you still have a quarter of what you originally put down.
Yeah,
So,
but how long? Not all half-lives are like a year either.
no,
A
no, these
half-life can be a decade or it could be a century.
yes, yeah. The different in the case
Or it
of
could be
neonics,
five
I know.
minutes. It could be 5 minutes too.
Yep,
That like
they
I
said
see. I told
exposure.
you I knew enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. There was Isabel wasn't able to make it tonight because she went to that water meeting.
Yeah, that's probably a
And
good.
Janet went there too.
Yeah.
But Isabel did say that there was a movement afoot in town. Well, there's a conservation coffee on Tuesday mornings. I
Okay.
used I used to go to it a long time ago, but then I got into taking my granddaughter to the bus stop and I stopped going to the meetings. Um, but they apparently were talking about some sort of pesticide activity in town, to understand it better.
Oh,
And she thought that was a great idea. She thought, should we be doing something like that, or should we let somebody else do something like that? I forget how she really
oh.
took that.
Well, I
Um,
think this is what I mean. This is some of what my understanding is. Stan, you've been on this too a long time, but my understanding is as one of the newer comments on this, that's one of the things we had to look into is the pesticide use, and it's what the outcome is when it's used. You know
yeah,
what happens, herbicides, the whole,
yeah,
fungicides. Right? And the interesting thing is, and this is something I found out a number of years ago, accidentally, because I had a horrible reaction one Sunday at church
mm,
to something. I was singing in choir, and I'm upstairs, and like downstairs is the kitchen, kind of under where the front of the church is. The sanctuary of the church is kind of over the kitchen area. And I'm
mhm.
singing, and all of a sudden, I can't breathe. I mean, scary as hell. So as soon as like the song was over, I ducked out and went downstairs. Like usually, if I have a bad reaction, I go and wash my face, blow out my nose, wash my face, wash my hands, and anything exposed. So I did all that. Then I said, next thing is drink a bunch of water. So I go in the kitchen to drink some water, and that's what the source of this was. And it's labeled as a disinfectant. So I took a picture. I don't think it was that day I thought enough to take the picture, but I went back and took a picture of it and then looked it up. A lot of things are labeled as disinfectant that are pesticides. But the disinfectant name sounds much friendlier. You know, and you think of disinfectant, hospitals, household use.
Yeah.
You know, but it's this exact same chemical.
Yeah.
You know, because I went and looked at the chemical names and whatever, and that I was somehow or other that stunned me, and that was probably 9-10 years ago, maybe 12. But that really opened my eyes to, and then with COVID, all the things we kept spraying and hand you know, sanitizers and all the rest, that how innocuous some of the things sound, yet they're really profoundly influential on our environment. And I'm not a crazy, like everything has to be natural, or, you know, I'm not a vegan. I mean, I'm kind of like, well, but I have some concerns.
I'm pretty much of a vegan, but I'm laughing because last year or the year before last, I was spraying potassium bicarbonate, which is a fungicide, on our tomato plants. Potassium bicarbonate is the same as sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, except potassium instead of sodium.
Yeah.
And potassium is very good for the plant, but sodium is not so good.
Not so good.
Anyway, but potassium is a plant fertilizer. Well, it said add a little bit of dish soap to the mixture of potassium water and potassium nitrate so that it sticks to the plant better. Right. So I put in a little bit of dish soap, like it said, sprayed the plants and said, great, I solved that problem. And I went back about 2 weeks later or so, or a week later, looked at them, and the plants looked horrible. And it said, yeah, exactly. And it said, and I looked it up and I read the list of ingredients, and this is Costco's eco-friendly dish detergent for use on your hands, you know, and in the dish and in the dish bowl, right? The liquid stuff.
Yeah.
The ingredients is an herbicide.
Yeah, well, that's been pointed out a few times, a few places now, that same thing, that when you're looking at natural or organic things to use on your plants, that's been pointed out, that some of the dish soaps, like my dad always used soap to get the things to stick when we were spraying.
Yeah.
And we thought that was like magic, because it did make a difference. If you didn't put the soap in, you know, it would like kind of roll off.
That's right.
Where the soap breaks the barrier, you know, whatever.
Breaks the surface tension.
Yeah,
but it turns out the Castile soap is okay. So I've switched.
I was going to say, I think years ago, the soaps were just pretty plain.
Yeah.
You know?
And why are these guys putting an herbicide in a dish soap? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because then I was just reading that they were saying that the plants, you know, then they had this trace, but it was some amounts that are kind of trace are still enough to be toxic and influential on nervous systems, and you know, you're not just a small insects but people.
The neonics have been really misused in a lot of places. In particular, there's one case in Japan where they sprayed neonics in a park up on the trees to kill the insects, and about, I don't know, a fair number of people ended up in the hospital because you know, it is toxic to humans at a high enough level.
Yeah, but like, you know, they say that, but like, no one else in choir had a reaction that day. I was the only person that had a reaction. No one else. So there's these rules that some people can stand certain things and others can't.
Right.
And you don't always fit in the average, you know, in the center of the bell curve. And
sure.
so it's like, and then you've got people who are, they're different, their weight, and then, children, I mean, elderly, and then depending on somebody's fragileness and health or their elevated age or,
Sure.
young and old, or whatever, there's different reactions by different people. Like all the people in the park didn't croak, apparently,
Yeah.
or have in the hospital, but
Right.
certain ones did. And that's, how
Yeah.
do you know who the certain ones are? On some of it, at a certain level, we're going to have a good chunk of people are not going to make it or going to be sick. But on those smaller amounts, it's hard to tell.
Well,
And how,
that's true of a lot of stuff. I mean, and when bees are exposed to neonics, it's not every bee that dies, but some of them survive and some don't.
yeah,
But the whole population is affected.
right.
Um, and well, like some weeds have developed an immunity to glyphosate.
Right.
Roundup ready weeds now.
The Roundups.
Apparently.
That's Roundup, right? Like that's the glyphosate, like the Roundup kind of things.
Yeah, there was a broadcast on was it? I think it was On Point on WBUR. It must have been 5-6 years ago, about what they called super weeds that have developed in the Midwest that can handle Roundup. Apparently some pigweed has evolved to, being Roundup ready on its own. And I don't think that's the case with bees and insects. I think certainly some insects develop an immunity to pesticides and they can pass that on to their offspring.
Oh,
But I'm not sure that, because a lot of well, you've seen Jaguar talk about, if a population gets low enough, it just collapses. It can't maintain itself. And so maybe what's going on with our native bees is that kind of a thing. The pesticide level is so high that the numbers get small enough that they just peter out and die.
yeah, or they don't have enough environmental support to feed themselves.
Right. Which is, and of course that's part of our thrust is these pollinator gardens like Isabel's been putting in and other people have been putting in around town and the high school.
But wouldn't it be a shot in our foot if we find out that some of the seeds we'd be using
Yes.
have
It'd be like me spraying that stuff, spraying herbicide, thinking I was helping the plant. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, we don't want to be idiots. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's worth contacting Cornell, or so you say Cornell does the testing, and anyone,
Yeah, Cornell.
how about UNH? Do they do that?
I don't know about UNH.
UNH seem to have better. A billion gazillion years ago, I used to work for the USDA out of UNH.
Yeah,
a billion gazillion years ago. My background is home economics, and I've worked for cooperative extension in New Hampshire at one point in my past. I mean, and of course I went to, as they call it, Cow College, URI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a cookie pusher at Cow College. And anyway, so that, I mean, just to let you know, like that's my background. And trained in teaching early childhood education was my focus in home ec. But that's the background. And we had basic chemistry. I mean, nothing too profound on my on my part. That was not my strong suit by any means. So
I have an idea for us. This is a thought. Would any of us in our committee want to do a talk about pollinators to Concord Adult Ed. I just got their catalog today, and I noticed that they have one little section called speakers, right? And these people talk about random things, like boating in Ireland or whatever. But I was thinking maybe, we've got those wonderful slides that Sarah Grimmel put together. All of us have materials. We could maybe, one of us might undertake to offer to Concord Carlisle Adult Ed to give,
Well,
a night,
maybe a little, if
couple
we're
hours.
going to do that, Mark, how about like a little panel? I mean,
Yeah.
like to me, it's like frightening. Like Isabel was awesome on Sunday. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my God, she's just like take charge, awesome of doing the whole thing, and happened to be sitting next to me. I didn't go to do. I gave, went to support people and help them hold tape and cut tape and stuff like that. But happened to be the woman sitting next to me was this. She's like the guru of winter sewing in the area. And it come to find out, Isabel was a little like, ugh. She's very sweet. The woman was very, very sweet, and even said to Isabel, I learned some things. So Isabel was very happy with that. But I think it's easier when there's like a little team of people. A couple of times I was thinking, maybe we should, along that line, is have a couple things like a panel and like a discussion, just because there's a lot of people in town know a lot of things one way or another, or think they know a lot of things one way or another. There's both. Some of them are very knowledgeable and some of them are knowledgeable like me to be dangerous. But to sit down and kind of look at some of these things,
Yeah.
The other thing that is, it's crazy, and I don't have her name right here, but I was looking for, I was looking for stickers for the Ag Day and some pictures and stuff. And some of the things I didn't get quite what I wanted, so I was looking afterwards. So I came across this woman, Daisy, I don't know her name. She's on Esty. Come to find out, she's like, I want to say Arlington or Cambridge. And she does drawings, cards, and calendars of pollinators. And she doesn't just, she's like studied at UVM, studied in a program to understand what the pollinator and the plant that they're basically, especially if they have a what do you call it, a relationship. And she got caught on one. She says this little woman came up with her little, she described it. She said, and told me this and this. And so she sent me a correction because one of them was incorrect, this Daisy. But she does art. And I wrote back to her. I said, this would be nice if you had some of these things on a learning thing. A learning, like because they're incredibly detailed. She shows the different life stages, like of the insect, like the little pieces, the little like caterpillars or whatever, they creepy crawlies till they get flying or whatever they're doing. And it's incredibly educational. And I was thinking, that might be an idea, is to support something like art, and especially like with kids or young, even teenagers. But what she would do is get you to observe the little parts and pieces of the flower and the insect and how they go together. She's not just like looking at it like, these are like biological drawings. They're incredible. What I'm smashing up here. Let me see if I can grab a picture. But I didn't think of that tonight, and I'm not going to be able to grab it. But anyway, I was thinking, well, that's a different audience with a different focus. But, and especially younger people, that's just a thought when you're saying this with the education or the library, is it's not the usual, people.
Mhm.
It's a different group, but I thought her stuff was, and like she's basically local. And I don't know, just a thought, a
Mhm.
whole, we don't usually think of the art people. Okay, we're pollinators with the art people, but and
That's a cool.
kids love the detail. Kids love tiny details, and the bigger the name and the more complicated it is to say, kids go for it. And I don't know, just a thought that when you said that, and I like that idea of possibly through adult ed,
Mhm.
because that's a different component of people than the library people.
Yeah. I think that's a nice idea. I've shown you guys this at my granddaughter.
Yeah.
But
And I've got my little pipe cleaner bees too.
yeah, exactly. And I think the kids, our grandchildren, have been really affected by, I guess, my interest in bees because
Yeah.
they're used to it, and of course
Yeah.
our children when our children were little, I was actively a beekeeper,
Right.
So they were, they were involved, and
Yeah.
sometimes they would dress up and work bees with me.
But look at what's his name? Ricky.
Yeah,
Marshall Farm. I mean, his kids pictures of the chickens and
yeah, right. Yeah, they like getting involved.
yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
But I mean,
Well,
just
that could be an area for us to do outreach, get together with this artist friend of yours and do you want to
it's just sort of it was kind of a crazy idea, but the thing I liked about hers is she has really studied the parts of the plant and the insects or critters involved and how they interact. I mean, and they're absolutely stunningly beautiful drawings. Daisy on Esty, and if you look like pollinators, you'll come up with her thing. I was a little skeptical because I've never ordered anything from Esty, and she wrote back a couple, and back and forth a couple things. And Santa is, I already know Santa's bringing me a special. I always have a baseball hat. I don't know if I pretty much always have a baseball cap on. I don't like getting my part burnt. So,
Sure.
so I happen to know Santa is bringing me a baseball
I got
cap.
more than a part to burn. Yeah.
Yeah, baseball cap with the kind of bee that pollinates blueberry bushes
Mhm.
and a blueberry bush on it. So you will probably see that soon. But Santa, I know Santa's bringing that.
Nice.
That was my big treat to me for Christmas.
Nice. Oh, that's wonderful.
But
Actually,
she's really, I mean, I've never, you just stumble on something like that. And she's out of the realm of the usual, like plant this, plant that, it's a different slant to some of the same learning, I think. But anyway, so yeah, I think we need to do more outreach in a bigger way, Mark. You're right. I think that's one of the things the adult ed is very good on.
Okay. Stan, does it make sense to you? What do you think?
Yeah, it's been very interesting listening to it.
We got the talker here tonight.
Um,
Let me see if I can
well, yeah,
up here.
I like the idea of doing, one of the elements of our charge is to do community outreach, so
Right.
that seems reasonable. Okay, well,
Here I am. I found she wraps the things in the old calendar pages. Like
Yep.
she's made calendars. So the things get wrapped in the calendar pages. And this is, and then, she's got about the things, and who she got here, I can't even see who she's got. I can't read it. Cannabis, genus
Yeah.
cannabis of the family. And anyway, hemp. Okay, that's the hemp. And then it's the other one is a Queen Anne's lace and Jerusalem artichoke.
Nice.
And I don't see who she's got for a pollinator on that, but most of them, there's like note cards like this.
Ah,
And like
nice.
this is the key to the note cards.
Okay.
And most of them have like bugs on them.
Yep.
Seasonal garden series set of 12 each. And those are kind of garden things. And there's different ones, and some of them are like the native plants and such. But it's amazing her detail. It's not just somebody who, kind of artistically did a nice watercolor.
Yeah.
They're very detailed.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're nice for talking with children about plants and stuff.
Well, like that's why I got some of the series of cards, because I thought, quite often you say like this plant or that plant, and you see it in one stage. They show it like the final, when the blooms all come out, but sometimes there's a while before you get to the blooms, and what's it look like in between and whatever. And I think some of that is, often not, what do you call it? People don't see or understand, and especially new gardeners are waiting for that flower like to appear kind of immediately, and it's a while. So I kind of like the idea of, and most of the catalogs, seed catalogs and such, I'll show you the final bloom when it's all cool looking.
Yeah.
And there's the pot before, there's the bloom, and then there's however it makes a seed that, can, and the seed part is often a part that's overlooked.
Yes.
Like the bloom, people like go for the flash of color,
Yeah.
cut them all off, and
Yeah.
no seeds.
Yeah.
So like some of her more recent stuff has definitely got that whole cycle nicely done. And anyway, I just thought, I said, and it's pretty looking,
I'm sure. Oh, wow.
you know.
Well, I hate to say it, but we're past
See?
8.
Oh my
we-
God, it's 8:12 already.
We should
Well,
stop.
thanks for listening to my
It's been very interesting.
my craziness. And I think that's a really good idea that we do some
Okay.
like a fireside chat or something of,
Okay.
I think it should be casual
Yeah.
and welcoming.
Yes.
like-
That
know,
might be
so-
fun. Maybe take a topic, some aspect of it, and then see who comes to want to chat
Yeah.
with it, share ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think some of like if we could get on schedule for like the winter would be kind of nice.
Okay. And I'll check with Cornell and find out what the price for those tests is these days.
Oh, okay. And if you find out, if I can sneak a family discount, I doubt it, but I'll go for it.
Okay. A bulk order or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what we do, and I'll check UVM on that too, because UVM,
Yes.
no, not UVM, it was actually UNH.
Yeah.
UNH had some more affordable testing than UMass did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Okay, testing. Neonics. Okay. I think that sounds really good. What do you think, Stan? I mean, are we
Yeah.
crazed?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. But
Um,
the area I grew up in, Scotland, was an agricultural area. And when I was young, the biggest product was flax.
right.
And my father was actually in the flax business. He originally came from Estonia,
Oh,
and they did a lot of flax growing there. And he came across to Scotland for a short time and stayed. So he lived the major part of his life in Scotland.
wow.
And my mother's family came from Ireland. And they were very much involved in the agriculture as well.
Yeah. What did
So
they grow? What did they grow?
in
Ah,
Ireland,
yeah.
for one, potatoes were a very big crop in Ireland that they were involved in, and I would imagine some of the grains as well. But when they came to Scotland, they played an important role in developing the raspberry industry in Scotland that
Oh,
started
wow.
in our hometown, the growing of raspberries on a commercial basis. And so my father was involved in flax. My mother's family were involved in the formation of the raspberry industry. And you look at
Oh,
the town now, it's a small town, 6,000 plus people. It probably was a bit larger when the peak of the industry in the town, but it had a lot of input into, and of course the other thing that grew was the what was ever needed for the whiskey industry as well.
yeah. I was going to ask you that. I had one
But
of the neatest
it
nights.
all went on, and it, when I was
Oh,
growing up, it all seemed pretty innocent. But when you look back on it now, the industry and what was going on with the land, the conversion of the land for these various developments it was amazing. That went back far enough, it was all really forested. At least at
oh,
the lower elevations, with primarily oak, because all the oak was taken off for
wow.
building ships.
Oh,
That all around the town, which was originally just huge oak forests, were gone. A lot
oh,
of it was converted to flax growing, when the flax industry became important. Then it went through raspberries and huge acreages of raspberries, strawberries, and
mm,
you can imagine what was put on the land to support all these activities without much thought.
wow. That's
Yeah,
quite a story.
yeah, yeah.
My favorite winter hat when it's not too cold
Yeah.
says Dick's Tea Bar, TEA bar.
Ah,
It's from Avamore.
from
Avamore.
Aviemore.
Avamore. Okay.
Aviemore.
Avamore. Thank you for saying it.
Yeah, we were a little bit south of that.
Okay. I'll have to, that's my winter hat.
Yeah, yeah.
One of,
And
well,
it's funny when,
it's like this time of year when it's not too cold.
yeah,
I
it's
did,
kind of funny that you always, the summer from school, you go off and get jobs locally. And the one job that Lynn got involved in was with a bee farming operation there, because Scotland was quite well known for honey and bees. But lo and behold, just across an Acton here, there's a place that sells honey from the place that Lynn worked in when she was in school. It was amazing how all
Wow.
these things go around, and there's that little British store in Acton that's near near the
Oh,
golf
yeah, the
course
bee's
there.
knees.
No, that's the one I think that's the one in Concord, isn't it? The bee's knees.
It's in West Acton now.
Oh no, okay. No, this is the one. It's called British something or other.
Oh,
It's
okay.
up near. I can't remember the names of the roads, but there's you should stop in there sometime. They've got a good collection of particularly cookies and
Oh, wow.
stuff from Scotland. That you'll
Oh,
see little jars of honey from the place that Lynn worked in, and when she was there, it was just a little farm. That was all it was.
well, thinking of the bees, the I guess it's the area bee association is meeting. They made arrangements to meet. I guess it's monthly at
Uh-huh.
First Parish in Concord,
Uh-huh.
and that was another group. Mark, I
Yeah.
was thinking that
Yeah.
in terms of before you even talked about this, having the speaker thing was to maybe have somebody even from their group talk to us but sort of support something from them since they're kind of meeting locally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know I happen to Rosalind. I can't think of her last name right now,
Yeah.
but she lives over near you, Mark. Raises bees.
Rosen Romberg. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, it's the Middlesex County Beekeepers Association.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That sounds about right. But yeah, but I mean, I don't know where they used to meet, but they're meeting. They're
they
meeting
used to meet
locally.
in Carlisle. Yeah, they used to meet in the center of Carlisle in a church.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the meeting
Yeah.
now here in Concord.
Yeah, First Parish,
Oh,
20
we
Lexington Road.
Okay, cool.
Rosalind's, like she's the one who made the arrangement for that to happen.
Excellent.
So anyway, so that's another like I think it's like a discussion, like like not necessarily a panel, but put out like a topic and let people kind of populate across ideas and whatever.
I think it's a good thought. Because a lot of those
I like that idea of the high school, the adult ed.
Yeah. Okay, we'll pursue these avenues. I think that's a good one.
And the other group that Isabel did some with one of the kids churches in Lincoln, I think it is. And I'm probably going to see if I can work with something at First Parish, because they usually do something for Earth Day and whatever, and probably like kids doing like plant, the winter sowing. Or the other thing is it's the same procedure, but is to get ahead on your garden plants. It's the same type of setup, but instead of having your tomatoes under a grow light, you do it basically the same way, but you don't have to put them out in the dead of winter, because they don't necessarily need the cold period or stratification of any sort. So,
right,
which I hadn't thought of until I was reading stuff about it. I said, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, but those kind of things I think that would get us in front of people a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, I think like the Green Thumbs and the Garden Club and those people, like some of them are on their own, whatever. Stanley mentioned to Mark earlier that by going to the meetings for the 250th, and I particularly chose to go to the meetings of the memorial and trees and something else group. Tuesday, they meet like every other Tuesday in the library in the morning at the trustees room, that I was able to put some input. And I don't think I changed any, but I think it's speaking, and there were other people speaking to the thing about using the possibilities of using native trees. And I also had a chance to speak with the landscape architect about it and not using all of the same. I said, well, it always looks nice, that column of trees all the way down. But I said, the problem is, when the critter comes and chews them up, or the fungus or the whatever it is comes and chews them up, then the whole column of trees is gone, instead of maybe having something a little more diverse that, yeah, you might lose some trees, but hopefully you don't lose them all. And, you can replant at some point and whatever. But anyway, so Laura Mills said on Sunday that this Krista Collins, who is like in charge of the tree part, got up and said that they were going to use all native trees for the 250th, which is not where they started. So piece by piece, little by little, I guess when we speak out that, sometimes there's people listening, and sometimes it gets a little bit of traction. So anyway, and I'm not necessarily that natives are absolutes. Like I mentioned, like the chestnut tree, I'd love to see chestnut trees, and we're not going to see pure American chestnut trees probably ever again, but they're breeding, and I think it's like less than 1%. It's a very small amount of a Chinese tree that's resistant to whatever these critters are that mess up the chestnut trees. I had chestnut trees in my yard in Harvard, Mass.
Yeah. We've got some here in Concord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Not
mean,
a lot.
they grew like 12, 15 feet, and that was it. They didn't, they were the
these are
sprouts.
still growing.
Nice.
Interesting.
Nice. Yeah. But I mean, stuff like that, I think that like I said, I'm not an absolutist. I'm more curious.
Yeah.
And if we can make something work in the bigger picture carefully, let's give it a shot. But I'm not under this, use a bunch of killer chemicals that is going to be here for, the next 50 generations.
Yeah.
Who knows the answers? Say hi to Lynn, say hi to Pam.
Okay. An interesting evening's talk, I think.
Well, it was just kind of nice to, for me, like, I don't know you guys at all. I mean, I don't know when. I knew Janet, I think, was the only person I knew on the whole crew at all before. And I met her when she was next door here doing Girl Scouts with her kids, which that's quite a while ago. And she goes, and I know her from First Parish a little bit. We each occasionally show up there, make guest appearances, And so it's been really nice to meet some other people in town, and we have like common interests. It's just, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. Night now.
Yeah, good night.
Yeah, see you.